The auction of Chain's alien marketplace was alive with noise and chaos. Hundreds of voices shouted over each other in 100 different languages. Bright neon signs flickered above stalls selling everything from weapons to strange glowing fruit. The air smelled of smoke, metal, and fear. In the shadowed corner of the market, a different kind of trade was happening. Here, the goods were not things, they were people. The slave auction was held in a wide, dimly lit chamber. Guarded by tall reptilian soldiers with shock rifles, a raised metal stage stood at the center. And on it, a line of beings stood in chains, heads down, waiting to be sold. A tall alien with purple skin and golden eyes stepped forward. He was the auctioneer, his voice sharp and cruel. "Tonight, we have a rare prize," he announced. "The last of her kind, a personal slave trained for loyalty, beauty, and service. A creature whose empathy gift allows her to sense your every need, your every desire." From the side, two guards dragged a young woman into the light. She stumbled but didn't cry out. Her wrists were bound by glowing energy cuffs. Her hair, silver like moonlight, framed a face too tired for her age. But her eyes, bright violet, still held a spark of life. The crowd murmured in excitement. This was Kelra, a member of a species almost wiped out by war. 201 was a symbol of wealth and power. In the back of the room, a human man stood, quietly watching. Captain Elias, dressed in a simple pilot's jacket, looked out of place among the alien warlords and merchants. He wasn't here to buy anything. He was here on another mission entirely. But when Kelra's eyes briefly met his, he froze. There was something in them. Fear, yes, but also a silent plea. The bidding began. 3,000 credits, shouted a fat alien with 4 arms. 5,000, barked a tall insectoid creature, its mandibles clicking in anticipation. The numbers climbed quickly. Kelra stood perfectly still, her gaze fixed on the floor. She had seen this before. She knew what came after the sale, and she had no hope left. Then a calm human voice cut through the noise. 20,000, Elias said. The room went silent. All eyes turned to the lone human. Some laughed, others glared. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and they weren't known for throwing around this kind of money. The auctioneer smiled sharply. "Ah, a human with deep pockets. Do we have higher?" Silence. No one dared match the bid. Not because of the price, but because there was something dangerous in Elias's steady gaze. "Sold," the auctioneer declared, slamming his staff against the stage. Elias stepped forward, handing over a small data chip with the payment. The guards shoved Kelra toward him. She didn't resist, but she didn't look at him either. They walked through the market together, past the shouting traders and flickering lights. Kelra finally spoke, her voice quiet but sharp. "You didn't need to waste your money," she said without looking at him. "I know what you want. They all want the same thing." Elias stopped, turning to face her. "I didn't buy you," he said simply. "I freed you." She blinked, confused. The words didn't make sense. "No one frees a personal slave," she said, her tone bitter. "Once you're bought, you belong to them until you die." Elias shook his head. "Not anymore," he said, and with a press of his wrist device, the glowing cuffs around her wrists powered down and fell into the snow-dusted street. Kelra stared at her freed hands, unable to speak. For the first time in years, there was no weight on her wrists. No constant pull from the energy chain. "Why?" she finally whispered, her voice trembling. Elias gave a small smile. "Because slavery is wrong. And because I need your help." Before she could answer, a loud mechanical growl echoed from behind them. Kelra's eyes widened. "They'll come after us," she said. Elias nodded. "I know," he replied, glancing toward the dark alleyways. "That's why we have to leave now." The two of them disappeared into the maze of the spaceport, the crowd already whispering about the human who dared to steal a prize from the galaxy's most dangerous market. And somewhere in the shadows, someone was already following them. The chains break. Small transport ship Aurora lifted off from the alien spaceport, its engines roaring as it cut through the thick smog of the planet's atmosphere. Kelra sat in the co-pilot's chair, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes fixed on the endless black of space. She hadn't said a word since Elias freed her. Part of her still expected him to change his mind, to give her orders like every other master she'd known. Elias sat at the controls, glancing at her now and then. "You can talk, you know," he said finally. "You're not my prisoner." Kelra's voice was calm, but cold. "I've heard that before. It's what they say when they want to make you believe you're free." Her violet eyes turned toward him, searching his face for any sign of a lie. Elias didn't flinch. "I don't want you to believe me," he said. "I want you to see it for yourself." They traveled in silence for hours, the hum of the ship the only sound. Kelra explored the cabin cautiously, no locked doors, no surveillance devices tracking her. In the small galley, she found fresh food, not the processed nutrient paste slaves were usually fed. She touched the fabric of the couch, sat down slowly, almost afraid it was a trap. Later, Elias found her staring at the stars from the viewing deck. "I've been on ships before," she said quietly, "but never as anything more than cargo." He stood beside her. "That's going to change," he said. "I'm going to end this slave network. And I think you can help me." Kelra's brow furrowed. "Help you? How?" Elias explained. Her species had a rare gift, an ability to sense emotions and intent with dangerous accuracy. She could tell when someone was lying, when they were afraid, when they were about to act. "If we can use that," he said, "we can predict our enemies' moves before they make them." She shook her head. "My gift. It's why they hunted my people, why they chained me." "I know," Elias said, "but it's also why we might win." 2 days later, they arrived at their first target, a mining station on a remote moon. The place looked abandoned, but Elias's data showed it was a cover for a slave holding site. Kelra followed him cautiously through the dark corridors. Her bare feet barely made a sound, her senses reaching out. "They're here," she whispered suddenly. 6 guards ahead, 2 nervous, 1 ready to attack. Elias adjusted his blaster. "Which one's going to attack?" "The one on the right," she said without hesitation when the ambush came seconds later. Elias was already moving. A single shot dropped the armed guard, and the rest surrendered quickly. Kelra stared at him in shock. "You believe me?" "Just like that," she said. "Of course," Elias replied. "Why wouldn't I?" They found the holding cells. 3 humans, 2 alien children, and an old man, all chained and weak. Kelra's hands trembled as she touched the lock controls. When the doors slid open, one of the freed prisoners looked at her and said, "You're one of them." "The readers?" Kelra froze, unsure if it was an accusation or gratitude. But Elias stepped in. "She's the reason you're walking out of here alive," he said firmly. "Back aboard the Aurora." Kelra sat across from Elias in the small mess hall. "You didn't have to tell them that," she said softly. Elias shrugged. "They should know the truth." She stared at him for a long moment before speaking again. "When you bought me, I thought you were like the others. I thought you wanted to own me." Her voice broke slightly. "But you never once treated me like a slave." Elias leaned forward. "That's because you're not." For the first time since they met, Kelra smiled, small, uncertain, but real. And for Elias, it was worth more than any victory. From slave to wife, the Aurora drifted in the shadow of a massive orbital station from a distance. It looked like a glittering city in space, but Elias and Kelra knew the truth. This was the central hub of the slave network. If they could destroy it, thousands across the galaxy would be freed. Elias checked his weapons while Kelra studied the layout on the holomap. This place is crawling with guards, she said, and worse. I can feel fear everywhere inside. Some of the slaves are terrified, but the guards, they're afraid of something even bigger. That's something bigger, Elias said. Is the man running this station the same one who destroyed your homeworld, Kelra's? Hands clenched into fists. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. Then let's finish this. The infiltration began under the cover of debris from a passing meteor swarm. Elias guided the Aurora into a hidden docking bay. Inside the station, the air smelled of oil and stale heat. Kelra led the way, her senses guiding them through patrol routes and avoiding traps. When they reached the holding cells, she froze. Inside, dozens of species sat behind energy barriers. Some looked at her with suspicion, others with quiet hope. Elias smashed the control panel, the cells unlocking one by one. Get to the docking bay, he shouted. But before they could move the prisoners out, the doors to the hall slid open. A tall, armored alien with red skin and deep, cruel eyes stepped inside. Kelra, he said in a low voice. I see my favorite prize has returned. Her breath caught. It was Vorik, her former master, the one who had chained her, broken her people, and sold her across markets. I am not your prize, she said, her voice calm but full of steel. Vorik laughed. Once a slave, always a slave. He moved forward, his claws catching the light. Elias stepped between them. Touch her, and you'll never take another breath, he said, raising his blaster. But Kelra put a hand on his arm. This is my fight, she said, her eyes locked on Vorik's. And for the first time, she let her full empathic power surge. He staggered, clutching his head as waves of his own cruelty and fear crashed back into him, amplified until he screamed, You can feel what you did to me, she said coldly. Now feel what I become. With one final surge, Vorik collapsed, unconscious. Elias stared at her, not with fear, but with pride. Remind me never to get on your bad side, he said with a grin. They planted charges throughout the control center. As they ran for the ship, explosions ripped through the station. Flames and debris lit up the darkness of space. The Aurora shot away just as the hub collapsed into a ball of fire. Thousands of freed slaves on escape ships scattered into the stars. Hours later, with the danger behind them, Kelra stood on the viewing deck. The starlight reflected in her violet eyes. Elias walked up beside her. You're free now, he said softly. You can go anywhere, do anything. She turned to face him. I could, she said, but I don't want to leave. Elias frowned slightly. Why? Because you didn't just free me from chains, she said, her voice warm. You gave me a reason to live again, and I choose to live it with you. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet hum of the ship surrounded them. Then Elias reached into his jacket and pulled out a small silver band. It wasn't from any alien market. It was something from Earth, simple but beautiful. He held it out to her. Then stay with me, not as a partner in battle, but as my wife. Kelra's smile was soft, but her eyes shone with emotion. She took the ring, slipping it on. I will, she said. The Aurora sailed on, cutting through the endless black. Two souls, once strangers from different worlds, now side by side, no longer master and slave, but equals, partners, and bound by love strong enough to cross the stars.